unsinkable ship? Did you know that 101 years ago, England made a ship called Titanic, but it sank on its first voyage? Listen to my presentation and you will know the answers to these questions. What is Titanic? Titanic was the most advanced and fancy ship 101 years ago. In fact, it was made so advanced that it had 16 watertight compartments. So if Titanic hit an iceberg, then it fills one compartment, but then only that compartment will be flooded, so the whole ship shouldn't sink. It was very big. It was 269 meters long and 28 meters wide. That is about 3 football fields. The main reason why they made the Titanic was to serve the Atlantic route. The Atlantic route was when America wanted to travel to England, or England wanted to travel to America, but they didn't have airplanes back then, so the only way to travel back then was by ship. So Titanic was made by Harlan Work and his team. He started building on March 31st, 1912. It cost about $7,500,000 in 1912 money. The cabins. The third-class cabin is this one, and it was not very nice, and it was made for people who weren't so successful, so they didn't have any money, and the furniture wasn't that well made. And the second-class cabin was not so bad, but it wasn't that great either. It was for people who had a job and stuff, but they weren't so rich. And the first-class people was, they had very, very nice cabins, and they were very rich, and they had very great furniture. The people of Titanic. There are many famous people on Titanic, like Ismay is the person who owned the ship. It's this guy, and he would have been rich if Titanic sailed safely, or if Titanic made lots of many more successful voyages, but it didn't. So anyway, he was first class, and he lived, but he was very hated because he owned the ship, so people thought if the ship sank, he should have went down with his ship. And Thomas Andrews, he is the guy who designed the ship, and he was rich because he was related to a royal person, and he was first class, and he died. Captain Smith is the sailing captain. This person, and he wasn't rich or he wasn't poor either. He was average, and he was a second-class passenger, and he died. And Ruth Becker is this girl, and she lived, and the reason why she's kind of famous is because she survived the Titanic, and she has a fascinating story that happened when she was on. And Melvina Dean was the youngest passenger on Titanic, and she just died in 2009, so recently, and she was a third-class passenger. And John Jacob Astor was the richest guy on the ship, and he died when he was first class. Sinking. On April 14th, 1912 at 11:40 p.m., the ship hit an iceberg. In April 15, 1912, 2:20 p.m., the ship sank completely. It reached the ocean floor at 30 knots. It sank on the Atlantic Ocean when it was trying to reach New York. I'm going to show you a clip on how it sank. So this is a Titanic, and it has 16 compartments, as I said earlier. So it was virtually unsinkable. And then it was traveling all the way there until it sank, like here, when it was trying to reach here at New York. So the iceberg practically sliced through the whole side of the ship, and then it filled 6 compartments when it could actually only hold 4. So then it filled the compartments, and then it slanted, and then broke in half, and then went 180 degrees up, and then slanted towards the bottom of the ocean. And now the 2 pieces are about 2,000 feet apart. And this is what it looks like now, kind of. And at art class, I drew a painting on Titanic. This way. And this is a newspaper, about how Titanic sank. This is a survival list of how many first-class people died. So, adult male, 51 out of 175 lived, so that is about 32.57%. An adult female, 140 out of 144 lived, that is about 97.22%. And first-class kids, male 5 all saved, and female 1 all saved. And the second-class survival list is adult male 14 out of 169, that is about 8.33%, and adult female 80 out of 93, so that is about 86.02%. Male 11 all saved, female 80 out of 93 were saved. And third-class people, the third-class adult male, 75 out of 462 survived, and that is 16.23%. And third-class female, 76 out of 165, that's 65.06%. And third-class kids, male and female, 224 out of 658 survived. Carpathia, and California. California was a ship that was about 10 miles away, so it was very close. So it was so close, in fact, that Titanic could even see California. And the reason why California didn't rescue Titanic when it sank was because California's radios were not on, so they didn't hear Titanic when they were sending out radios to other ships for rescuing. And it was also surrounded by a lot of icebergs, so to stay safe, they decided to not move. And Carpathia was the ship who rescued the Titanic, rescued the people who got to go on the lifeboats in Titanic, and it came around 9 to 11 hours after Titanic actually sank. How they could have prevented this disaster. They could have built the ship more properly, and if they had enough lifeboats, it would have maybe saved everyone on the ship. And because there were only 16 lifeboats, and they knew that was not enough. And if, of course, California's radios were on, and obviously if Titanic did not bump into the iceberg. Finding the Titanic. A person called Robert Ballard found Titanic with his team. He found it about 70 years after Titanic sank. It was 13 miles away from its sinking location, so that was partly why it was so hard to find. And he sent a robot named JJ to explore inside of the ship. Titanic movie. So the Titanic movie was made about 15 years ago, and it earned over $2 billion. And it took 1 year and 7 months to make the movie. And I know that's a little long to make a movie, but this movie was about 3 hours long. So that's why it took so long. And this movie is one of the most successful movies of all time. And it won many different awards. Biblical perspective. My biblical perspective is you cannot expect all your things to work even if you're successful, and just assume that everything's going to work because you're so rich and everything, like England was. And I chose this Bible verse, Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before the fall. Why I chose this topic. I chose this topic because I liked the movie, and my dad said that I should do my ISP on Titanic, and I looked it up on the internet,